Welcome to the decade in which India discovered the thrill of driving. The Cedia, my first full-blown rally car. So-so engine, but what a fantastic chassis. The Polo, for 12 years the thrill of driving benchmark and the car that put me on the map as far as rallying goes. The Punto Abarth, 1.4 turbo engine in this model package, torque steered everywhere and sometimes even in third gear, wheel spin. The Yeti, the first SUV that handled like a car and went round corners like an enthusiastic puppy. The Honda Civic, sweet 1.8-litre iVTEC engine, a chassis so low it kissed speed breakers everywhere, but on a good road, oh boy, what joy. The Nano, rear engine, rear wheel drive, like a 911 or a Beetle. What a story. The i20, the car that marked the start of Hyundai taking dynamics seriously. And the Figo, the only car that could match the Polo for the thrill of driving. The Dzire, our beloved Swift, got a boot stuck onto its ass. Men are back, screamed the SX4. But this was based on the SX4 hatchback that Suzuki took to the World Rally Championship. The Innova, it could seat 7 in comfort and it could go around corners without fear of it falling down the mountain. Not all cars in the 2000s were about handling, but the Fortuner, it taught us the meaning of quality, durability, and indestructibility. The Logan, from the joint venture that promised so much, but like most Mahindra joint ventures, fizzled out. These are the cars of the second half of the 2000s, 2006 to 2010, keeping in step with the Evo Era series that headlines the new Evo India MacBook. Larger format, beautiful imagery, long format storytelling, and built to last. Just like the cars of the 2000s. This is the fourth in our Evo Era series. We've done the 80s, 90s, 2000 to 2005, and this is 2006 to 2010. What's your hero car of the 2000s? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoy this series, give us a thumbs up, share this video with like-minded enthusiasts, and of course, stay subscribed to the Evo India channel and smash that bell icon to stay notified for all our video drops. Gone but not forgotten, it drops second and fourth Thursday of every month. To understand the Polo, you have to understand Volkswagen's larger plans for India when they arrived. 2007, a 575-acre greenfield facility was set up at Chakan, just outside of Pune. 3,800 crores was invested in it, the single largest investment by any German manufacturer. In a record 17 months, that plant was complete. Volkswagen's board, they targeted an 8 to 10% market share in the long term, and to that end, overnight, the posher parts of Pune saw an explosion of rents and Passats on the road, ferrying all those expats. Volkswagen, they followed a top-down strategy. So after the Passat came the Jetta, the Beetle, the Touareg, even PX masterpiece, the Phaeton. It was all leading up to this car, and the marketing blitzkrieg was unlike anything that we saw. There was the Times of India roadblock campaign. There was the talking newspaper. There was the car, a full-size car suspended from the side of the building, and it all led up to the 2010 Auto Expo where the Volkswagen Polo was launched. At launch, the Polo got the 1.2 TDI and 1.2 MPI engines. Both made 74 bhp and both were noisy. The diesel, it was fine. We had come to expect noisy, clattery diesels. But a petrol making that much noise, Volkswagen, they had underestimated how spoilt we were by Suzuki's smooth revving and silent petrol engines. Now, the Polo in India had structurally the same build as the European Polo. So same quality, same weight, same torsional rigidity. It drove really well. First, you had to get up to speed though, and it took forever to get up to speed. This was not fast. It handled really well, the stability was really good, but it needed more oomph to move the car. That oomph arrived in 2012. Now, we are going beyond our 2006 to 2010 remit. We're jumping forward to 2012 when Volkswagen, they took the 1.6-litre petrol engine from the Vento, that was the booted Polo with a longer wheelbase, and they plonked it into the Polo. And that's the car that we went rallying with. Now, a personal anecdote. In 2012, I had quit what was the best job in the world to go and wear a suit and tie and road test a desk. Obviously, I hated it, and I spent every free minute, including the time I was supposed to be actually making PowerPoint presentations, in putting together a rally team. In 2013, our team debuted at the South India Rally, and against all odds, I not only finished that rally but took the first class victory for the Polo in Indian rallying. And that set the stage for the Polo's dominance of the INRC. And today, the Polo is the single most popular car in rallying. And that's what? 10-15 years later, it's still so popular. In rallying, we discovered the thrill of driving, and in October of 2013, we launched a magazine devoted entirely to that pursuit that blended the technical and driving expertise that we had developed in rallying with long-format storytelling and the most ambitious visual photography and design of any automotive magazine in India. Without the Polo, there might not have been Evo India magazine. Without the Polo, there definitely would not be the focus on the enthusiasts that you see on this channel today. The TSI engine came in 2013 complete with a 7-speed twin-clutch DSG automatic. Now the DSG, it didn't let the Polo launch vigorously, obviously to save life of the gearbox, but once it got into its stride, the GT was phenomenal. This did 0 to 100 in a little over 10 seconds, and it was the benchmark for the thrill of driving. It also gave birth to the GT badge, which still holds strong in the Volkswagen lineup. One thing though I have to mention, the engine, the transmission, even the steel used to stamp the body parts for every single Polo variant right till the very end, all of that was imported. And that's why the Polo could never compete on price. But until the demise of the Polo GT was the thrill of driving benchmark. No other manufacturer has done as much for Indian motorsport as Volkswagen. Right from the very start, the board members were determined to use motorsport as a tool to push their performance credentials, and they did it in style and in utter professionalism. Up until then, Indian racing series, they had rampant issues with multiple things. But with the Polo Cup, not a single driver complained about a performance differential between the cars. The cars were built to FIA standards, even though that cost a lot, but they did not compromise on safety or on performance. Volkswagen also innovated when they started off. So the Polo came with the 1.6 TDI for racing. Afterwards, they put the RS engine into this. Then they had the Vento Cup, the Emio Cup, ended with the Polo Cup. So they did experiment with a different format also. But in terms of professionalism, in terms of what they taught Indian drivers, Indian technicians, in terms of the upgradation of race facilities that Volkswagen pushed through, when they came, they were aghast by the facilities available in India. And they not only pushed through racetrack facilities, but toilets, air-conditioned viewing boxes, hospitality areas, taking care of drivers, all of that Volkswagen sorted out. Sadly today, Volkswagen Motorsport does not exist, but what they did for Indian motorsport on the whole, we will forever be grateful for. The 2014 facelift brought the GT TDI, 1.5-litre diesel, 103 bhp, and that was the spec that we took from Manebhanjang to Sandakpur, the highest motorable road in the eastern Himalayas, the track known until then as the land of Land Rovers. Global NCAP gave the Polo 4 stars, the first hatchback in India to achieve that score. Twin airbags became standard across the entire range. Then came the Polo GTI, EA888 engine, 190 bhp, 0 to 100 in 7.2 seconds, the fastest hatchback we had ever tested. And it came complete with the iconic tartan seats and a chassis tuned to make it an epic driver's car. It was a CBU, it was not cheap, it struggled to sell initially, then it sold out in a flash when the prices were revised. Today, you can't find a GTI for love or money, and if you do find it, it'll cost more than what the owner got it for when it was new. As for the Polo, when BS6 emission norms kicked in, that retired the 1.2 TSI and in came the 1-litre TSI engine, which was at the heart of the Volkswagen India 2.0 project. We stepped out of the first lockdown in May of 2000 to test the Polo GT TSI with the 1-litre engine, and we declared it by a massive margin the thrill of driving benchmark. Now this came with a manual gearbox. The GT TSI until then had only the DSG automatic gearbox. It was awesome to drive. It had all the charm, all the character of the earlier GT TSI, but in a more affordable package. Production of the Polo wound down in 2002, not because the Polo had run out of relevance. In fact, in its final years, the engagement on social media, on YouTube was through the roof. But the market had moved on, and Volkswagen's India 2.0 strategy now revolved around the Taygun mid SUV that used all of the Polo's dynamic DNA, but in a package that was more suited to its times. Also, it continued with the GT badging. The Polo's torsional rigidity, the driving position, the control weights calibrated for driver feedback, all of it went directly into the Taygun's development brief. There are few cars that I can say changed the course of my life. The Polo most certainly did. It took me into rallying in a big way. It inspired the launch of Evo India magazine and this channel. For a whole generation of young engineers, drivers and enthusiasts, the Polo Cup was where their automotive dream started. The Polo, it might be gone, but everything that it stood for most certainly hasn't. I have a warm, soft, cuddly place in my heart for the Cedia. This was, after all, my first full-blown rally car which I rallied for 3 full seasons. My rally car, it was a Cedia Sports that came complete with the bumper extension, side skirts, boot spoiler, Momo steering wheel, OZ racing wheels. All of that went into my rally car. Those were the days when the sharp end of the rally grid were full of Cedias. The Works MRF and Red Rooster teams, they were running the N+ Cedias. Those engines were revving to the moon, making some 200 bhp. The MRF cars, their engines were made in Australia. The Red Rooster cars, they had got internals from a Formula 1 supplier. My car, it was a humble Group N car, showroom stock condition. So apart from an intake, exhaust and race dynamics ECU, the engine, it was stock. And I remember the gap in the power band from second to third was so long that we would really struggle up the hairpin sections. The engine on the Cedia, especially in stock trim, that was no firecracker. What it lacked in power, it made up in handling. The platform was similar to the Evos. In fact, all the mounting points of the Evo were similar to the Cedia. So a lot of these cut-paste Evos were built off Cedias. And this car, the rear suspension, because it was independent, that made it forgiving and also very stable at high speeds on rally stages. I remember when Red Rooster, they put riggers on my rally car. That's when my performance took a huge jump up and I started to compete for the Group N 2000cc championship. The Cedia was a superbly reliable road car and that made it a fantastically reliable rally car. Drive shafts would last the entire season. We would not carry a spare gearbox. The engine would run and run. In fact, in that first season, I don't remember the car ever breaking down due to mechanical problems. The 4G94 engine, it made 113 bhp, 175 Newton meters. It was a long stroke engine and it had a lazy character. The gear ratios were also very widely spaced. So as a road car, it was not very inspiring. You pitted this against a City VTEC. The City VTEC was way faster, even though this handled better. But once prepped for rallying, this made for a superb rally car. The Cedia's dominance of Indian rallying only ended after extensive development of the Polo. The Polo, it was smaller, more nimble. Its shorter gear ratios meant it accelerated harder and faster out of tighter corners. The Cedia, well, its problem was that HM Mitsubishi dealers were rarer than unicorns. Finding parts was becoming increasingly difficult. The rally boys bought every Cedia they could find, stripped down for parts, and when all those avenues were exhausted, they switched en masse to the Polo. The Cedia, it was discontinued in 2012. Its legacy in Indian rallying, though, is permanent. Honda, they've just launched the facelifted City, and my first reaction at looking at those pictures was, that's it? A light bar connecting the lights and a little bigger screen. That's it? That's going to save Honda? Because make no mistake, Honda's four-wheeler business is in dire straits. The two-wheeler business is keeping the entire Honda mothership afloat. But it was not always like that. And in the 2000s, Honda were the brand that everybody aspired to. When the 8th generation Civic came to India, this was a league ahead of all its other rivals. The Civic looked like it was styled by somebody who had binge-watched on Star Wars and enjoyed it thoroughly. The tail lamps, the lighting elements, this was inspired by a jet fighter's afterburners when you look at it at night. Sleek, low-slung and swoopy. This won the 2007 Indian Car of the Year. Thoroughly deserved. The interiors were similarly futuristic. A two-tier dashboard, on the top a digital speedometer, below that a tachometer analog, and because this iVTEC engine loved to rev, that tacho needle loved to swing to the red line. The driving position, low slung and sporty. Ergonomics were fabulous. The steering wheel, lovely to look at and to hold, and nice little details. For instance, this handbrake lever, it was styled to look like an aircraft throttle, and it felt so good. It made all other handbrakes look and feel so dated. The gear lever comes to hand brilliantly, and of course, all Honda's sweet and slick gearbox. To drive, man, this car was exceptional. The 1.8-litre iVTEC engine, love to rev, sweet engine, 140 bhp, 174 Newton meters. This Civic, it became Honda's second pillar alongside the City. I spent plenty of time driving the Civic, including a massive 6,200-kilometer drive on India's Golden Quadrilateral. Now, that was in the days before the G-Quad was fully complete. And there is this really cool picture of the Civic stuck in mud when I went to one of those diversions where the G-Quad was not complete. We, of course, made it to Chennai. At Chennai, Karun Chandhok, he drove all the cars. We had done that drive along with the Octavia and the Corolla. Until then, the Octavia, that was our benchmark for dynamics. Karun, he drove the Civic, did a lap of the Chennai track, and he came back and he had only 2 words for us. Awesome. The Civic, it became the new dynamic benchmark in its segment, and it smoked everything else. Space at the rear wasn't great for a car bridging the gap between the Accord and the City, but the driving experience was sublime. Except the Civic had one fatal flaw, as that road trip on the Golden Quadrilateral made brutally clear. The Civic was so low that it would touch over every second speed breaker. And as soon as word of that got out, saves hit the proverbial speed breaker. The other problem, the rear suspension was very soft, so the rear seat passengers would really get nauseous, and very quickly at that. Then there was no diesel engine, and that was a big problem in a market that was rapidly shifting towards diesels. The Civic had a brilliant chassis tuned for smooth roads, except India had no smooth roads. Honda pulled the plug on the Civic in 2012. In 2018, it came back, but the iVTEC only got a CVT transmission. It got a diesel, but then came BS6, then came COVID, and the 10th generation Civic, that only lasted for 2 years. Honda didn't really keep the faith with the Civic. The Auto Expo, Jan of 2008. Ratan Tata walks up onto stage to reveal the world's most affordable car, and everybody collectively loses their mind. Journalists, people from all over the world had assembled over there, suppliers, all of them, to see the car that so much was talked about, the 1 lakh rupee car. Carlos Ghosn later on remarked that he should have thought of it and got his team to start working on the Kwid. By any measure, this was the single most important and historic automotive launch in India. A promise is a promise, Ratan Tata said, and he kept his promise. The Nano was an engineering problem stated clearly and solved completely. Take a family of 4 on a scooter exposed to the elements, especially in the rain. Give them the safety of 4 wheels, put a roof on their heads, and make it affordable to them. The Nano was that and more. The styling was by Justin Norek in Italy. It had happy, cheerful styling. The engine, designed and manufactured by Tata Motors in India. 624cc, rear-mounted, 34.5 bhp, 48 Newton meters. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the Nano weighed just 600 kilos. And this was stocky, so in the hills, the Nano was actually pretty quick. The space inside, now even though this was some 8% smaller than a Maruti 800, it had 21% more interior room. Ratan Tata, he was a tall man and he could fit inside. These air intakes, that's to cool the rear-mounted engine. We used to call this the Ferrari of India because everywhere that the Nano went, it turned heads. 1 lakh rupees got you the base standard version, and base means absolutely base. You got nothing. This is the Twist, which was launched in 2015. And the Twist, it got these glove boxes over here for the driver as well as the passenger, a silver finish center console, a CD player, air conditioning, and power steering. Now, if you look at the layout of the dashboard, it was designed for exports as well. So that's why you had the center console, and the steering could be moved to either side. Sadly, the Nano never made it as far as exports. Look at the space at the back seat. This is genuinely impressive. In fact, there was nothing wrong with the car. The reason it didn't sell was not the car, but it was the perception. Now, the 800, it put millions on the road. but it was never marketed as the cheapest car that you could buy. The Nano, that tag stuck, the 1 lakh rupee car, the cheapest car in the world. And anybody buying their first car didn't want to be seen in the world's cheapest car. It was the perception that killed the Nano. Normally, I'd show you the engine while talking about the engine, but the hatch only opened with the Gen X, which came later on. Here, the hatch doesn't open. So to access the engine, you have to fold down the rear seats and then get to the engine. The engine, it's a 2-cylinder, 624cc engine. It made 34.5 bhp, 48 Newton meters. 0 to 60, 9.8 seconds. 0 to 100, 34.8 seconds. And it took almost a kilometer to get to that mark. Top speed, 105 kmph, a 4-speed manual gearbox. Later on, an AMT transmission also came on it. The ARAI rated fuel efficiency was 23.6 kmpl. It had a 15-liter tank, which you filled by opening the bonnet. Of course, there was no engine over there. And for a person upgrading from a scooter, all those specs made a lot of sense. Ratan Tata set out to build the world's cheapest 4-door car, and he did it. And when India eventually builds an affordable EV, this will be the proof of concept that everyone points to. Single wiper. You have to fill fuel from the nose, and later on in its life, the 15-liter tank was upgraded to 24 liters. This is not very convenient, is it? The Nano got staggered tire sizes like a Porsche. 135 section at the front, 155 at the rear. And these are 12-inch tires. You will also notice only 3 bolts. Cost cutting, obviously. The Nano, so many issues it had. It had to shift the factory from Shingur in West Bengal to Sanand in Gujarat, all across the country. Obviously, that increased prices, that delayed the launch. Then there were those fires, which Tata honestly didn't do enough to address. The updates also came too slowly. In 2012, power went up to 37-something bhp. Then came the twist in 2015 with power steering. Later on came the Gen X, where the hatch could open, and it also had an AMT automatic gearbox, the world's cheapest automatic car. But all those changes and updates came too little and too late. In 2018, the last year of the Nano, just 275 were sold. The Nano, it did everything that its engineering brief went out to achieve. Only thing, the perception is what killed the car. When Toyota canned the Qualis in 2005, it was met with a mix of grief and disbelief. How could Toyota can their most loved Indian product? Well, the answer came dressed in new clothes but powered by the same Toyota quality ethic. And that was the Innova. Where the Qualis was built to survive, the Innova was built to survive while also impressing. It had proper 3-row seating. Everybody, all 7 passengers could be comfortable. The aircon worked much better. It had more performance. It had better ride. It had better handling. It had better safety. It also looked so much better. Private buyers were not embarrassed to be seen driving this. Unlike the Qualis, where you really had no other option to the Qualis, the Innova, it looked good. Whether you were a private buyer, whether you were a fleet buyer, if you had a wedding destination in Rajasthan, you had a fleet of Innovas. Innova was for everybody. The improvements over the Qualis was massive. These captain seats in the back of the Innova, familiar to everybody. The ride, the handling of the Innova was a huge step up on the Qualis, where the Qualis would pitch and roll and dive. The Innova, calm and composed. The 2.5-liter D4D diesel engine, lazy state of tune. 102 bhp, 200 Newton meters of torque. In fleet use, its durability and fuel efficiency made accountants happy. In private use, its refinement made passengers happy. The Gen 1 Innova, it ran from 2005 to 2015. And in that decade and the decades after, the Innova became the MPV to buy. Even though prices kept going up, rivals kept coming in, but nothing could beat the Innova. In its resale, in its durability, in its longevity, the Innova was the only one to have. And even today, it's the Innova that you want, much like its elder brother, the Fortuner. In the early 2000s, the Pajero and Endeavour ruled the premium SUV segment. Toyota, they took the same Endeavour formula. They took their Hilux platform, built the Fortuner on it, and changed the rules of the game completely. Where the Pajero fell labored at highway speeds, and the Endeavour, in its previous leaf-sprung avatar, was an absolute handful. The Fortuner, it was stable, it was predictable, and it was indestructible. The Fortuner had 3 rows of seats, though to be honest, if you wanted a proper 7-seater, you were far better off with an Innova. The 3rd row of seats, it actually was not meant for adults. You were sitting knees up and it was a bit cramped. Air conditioning was sorted, quality was sorted, reliability was sorted. To drive, this was different to the Innova. It wasn't great in terms of handling, but you hit a bad road and instead of slowing down, you could speed up. This could take bad roads like nothing else. It was bouncy, what with the ladder frame chassis, but it was an absolute beast. Then there was the Toyota badge. In the SUV world, no other badge carried as much weightage for reliability as Toyota did. This thing would last forever. You could run it for 3 lakh kilometers without any major mechanical intervention. Residual values were phenomenal. Even today, 15-year-old Fortuners command incredible prices in the used market. That incredible reliability meant you could go extreme with modifications and nothing would happen to the car. This could take engine tuning, it could take all these off-road accessories and just keep chugging along. In terms of its off-road prowess also, this was extremely strong. The 4x4 had 4 lows, so it would do some serious off-roading. A lot of these were used in Southeast Asia for rallying. In India, not so much for rallying because it was obviously very big, but in terms of modding for off-road purposes, doesn't this look super cool? This was done by our friends over at Minecraft Design, and I think it's a remarkable piece. Aggressive and also functional. The first gen Fortuner ran from 2009 to 2016. The second generation is 10 years old and continues to run strong. In fact, demand is so strong that in GR Sport trim, the Fortuner, it's priced at 50 lakh rupees and it's still finding buyers. What Toyota have done with the Fortuner as well as with the Innova, it's a case study for engineering and management students world over. Before the Duster, before the Creta, before the mid-SUV segment was even born, came the Yeti. Now, this was the first of this new breed in the segment that would grow to become the fastest growing and most profitable sector of the Indian car market. But like so many interesting cars of its time, the Yeti was too soon for its own good. That sweet spot that it occupied was probably no man's land. So on one hand, you had the Duster and the XUV 500. On the other, you had the Fortuner and the Endeavour. And caught in the middle was this cutesy little car that nobody knew what to really make of, especially considering its pricing, except for the people who actually drove it. Mid-size SUVs are resolutely front-wheel drive today, but the Yeti, it had 4x4. Now ignore the RS badge that's been stuck on by the owner, Entu Cutlet that he is. The Yeti was only TDI, only had the 2-liter diesel engine, but the 4x4 system, it actually gave the Yeti serious off-road capabilities. We took it off-roading and the places and the conditions it could extract itself out of was frankly incredible. A lot of cars, a lot of SUVs with proper 4x4 would struggle to get out of those. Short wheelbase, also small car, light, it really could do serious off-roading. It had a Haldex clutch system that would send power to the rear wheels when needed. Otherwise, it was front-wheel drive in the interest of fuel efficiency. What really endeared us to the Yeti was its friendly styling. Turned out it was also a double-edged sword. So this had the proportions of a tall hatchback, friendly face, not intimidating, and completely different from SUVs of its time, which were all aggressive and in your face. This was happy. You were pleased to look at it. And this did not want to bully you on the road. It also had road manners unlike any of the other SUVs. This was the first SUV that was genuinely car-like to drive, with ride comfort and handling. The Octavia platform in this mid-SUV footprint, it delivered results and results in a very positive manner. Among the many clever features in the Yeti was the VarioFlex seating. So this center armrest, you could actually move it out of the way and these two individual buckets could be moved closer to each other to increase elbow room, so make it into a 4-seater, or you had the convenience of a 5-seater, cup holders in the armrest. Really thoughtful touches in the Yeti, stuff that you don't really find in modern cars today. What Indian SUV buyers actually cared about was the third row of seats, which the Yeti did not have. The Yeti did not even have an automatic transmission. That could have somewhat justified the extravagant 20 lakh pricing for the 4x4 version. And that's the reason why the Yeti, it struggled to find buyers. It gave birth to the mid SUV segment, but it gets none of the credit for that. In 2009, Fiat launched the Grande Punto in India with both the petrol as well as the diesel engine. And right from the start, it acquired a cult following. And that was because of its ride comfort, its robustness, and its solidity. In 2010, we did a mega comparison test with all the rivals, all the small cars in its segment. And the one thing that stood out for the Grande Punto above all else was the ride comfort. I remember even thinking that if only this car had a little bit more power, it would make for a great base for a rally car because its dynamics were really sorted. Fiat heard us, and in 2015 came the Abarth. The Abarth project in India was not a marketing project. It was an engineering project. Fiat's engineers in India, when they had some spare time, they would actually work on a go-faster car. So they put the linear T-Jets engine into the Grande Punto. They got 108 bhp out of it. They tweaked the suspension. Then they requested their colleagues in Italy to send them a different engine map. They put that on. They got 128 bhp. They further tweaked the suspension. Every time visitors came from Italy, they showed them the car and they told them that, hey, we got this car here. This is prepared. Let's do something with it. But the project, it faced the usual corporate stonewalling and bureaucratic red tape. In fact, it went on for so long that Fiat got a new global boss, Mike Manley. When he saw the project in India, he was intrigued and he greenlit the project. It went in with a European ECU tune, different gear ratios, did not need any additional Indian adapting. It met all regulatory requirements. As for the name, a colleague visiting from Italy, he suggested, why don't we call it Abarth? And that was that. The engineering team, they put decals on a matte grey car, and that was that. The project was greenlit, and we got the Grande Punto Abarth. The 1.4 T-Jet turbo petrol engine, it eventually put out 145 bhp, and that was not the end of it. Fiat engineers, they also tweaked the suspension, so they gave it rear disc brakes. The anti-roll bars were stiffened. It was lowered a bit. This was tuned in terms of the chassis as well. Now, you got a lot of torque steer. You also got wheel spin, sometimes on concrete roads, even in third gear. But this was an absolute hoot to drive. The Abarth was even priced competitively. It was cheaper than the GT TSI and it was quicker in a straight line than the GT TSI. Yet, Fiat, as Fiat had consistently done, they failed to back a great product. There was no marketing budget. There was no promotions around the Abarth brand. Forget the car itself. And that's why the brand and the car died a slow death. The dealerships weren't equipped to sell a go-faster brand. And in the back end, FCA, they were quietly tooling up for the demise of Fiat and the resurgence of the Jeep brand in India. They were tooling up for the Jeep Compass, and Fiat, they were on the back burner. They were going to shut the Fiat brand, and this was the ultimate victim. You know the saddest part about the whole Abarth story? Up until then, manufacturers used to give us fake go-faster cars. They would put a stripe or some stickers on the car and call it rally or race and be done with. Whereas Fiat, they actually engineered this car to go faster. They put a faster engine, they tweaked the suspension. It was a holistic engineering project, and then the styling team took over, put these Abarth badges on it, and made a good-looking car even better to look at. This car should have been the flag bearer for the enthusiast community. Yet Fiat failed the car. Fiat failed to sell it. When it was around, nobody bought it. And now that it is gone, everybody is talking about it. In the first half of the 2000s, Hyundai was still finding their feet. The accent was too soft. The Sonata went softer still. The Verna was also soft. All Hyundais did not handle. And then in 2008 came the i20, and this was the first car in which Hyundai took ride and handling seriously. Before this car, there was the Getz, but it was the i20 that announced Hyundai as a serious player in the premium small car category. And it had one thing that no other Hyundai had up until then: a proper door shut. In fact, we said that this door shut comes very close to Octavia territory, and in our world, that was the highest praise indeed. The i20 also got so many features that you would not have expected in a small car way back then. It was also very spacious, small footprint, but remarkably spacious on the inside. It got the 1.2 petrol that you see over here, but even better was the 1.4 diesel, which was more refined than the Swiss 1.3 diesel and terrifically fuel efficient. In fact, when we had one i20 on our fleet with the diesel engine, that was our go-to car for everything, and it crisscrossed the country. I think we put some 45,000 kilometers on it in 1 year. The i20, it didn't have the Swift's enthusiasm or the Polo's performance, but it had more space than both and more features than both. And it marked the start of Hyundai's transition from a value brand to a premium brand. And that made every subsequent Hyundai more desirable. The woke lot would have lost their collective minds if they were around when the SX4 was launched. Its marketing tagline was "Men are back." Today, you'd be dragged to court for being so sexist. Here's a statistic. In 2007, Maruti dominated every segment that they were playing in except for the premium segment. The SX4, it was designed to address that fact. It was co-developed with Fiat. It was styled by Giugiaro's Ital Design Studios. In Europe, there was the SX4 hatchback. India got the sedan and it was intended to replace the Esteem and the Baleno. And priced at 6.5 lakh rupees, it was aggressively positioned. Just look at it. Butch, muscular, a bit of flair in the wheel arches, 505-litre boot, massive, 16-inch alloy wheels, which was very big by the standards of its time, and urban soft-roader stance. Ground clearance, 190 millimeters. Just for reference, the Slavia Virtus, that has 175 mm ground clearance. This 190 mm ground clearance. Touching speed breakers in a sedan was a thing of the past. The driving position is high set, the consequence of the crossover DNA. The raised hip point means that you walk in and out of the car. Great for ergonomics. And here's one thing that we take for granted in cars today, and that's steering wheel audio controls. The SX4 introduced it in its category for the very first time. With the SX4, the old G series petrol engines were finished, and in came the M series. 1.6-litre M series petrol, 102 bhp, made it to a 5-speed transmission. Now, this engine is the diesel, same 1.3 diesel engine, but with a VGT turbo, so slightly more power to pull the extra weight of the SX4. The ride was a little firm at low speeds, but the high-speed stability was good, the steering was crisp and responsive, and this was genuinely fun to drive. And if driver appeal is what you were after, well, Suzuki, they took the SX4 to the WRC. Of course, that was the European SX4 with 4-wheel drive and the hatchback body style, but we could take solace from the fact that the front end of our Indian SX4 was the same as the one that was rallying. In 2009, the petrol got variable valve timing and a 4-speed automatic gearbox, but the SX4, it lasted for only one generation. In 2014, the Ciaz replaced it, but the SX4 proved that Maruti, if they put their minds to it, they could make a car that you wanted to buy, rather than just having to buy it because there was no other option. Maruti was long rumored to build an Esteem replacement on the Swift platform, and that came in 2008 as the Dzire. And the first time we saw the Dzire, the styling left something to be desired. Now, the Dzire, it had the same wheelbase as the Swift, but this big boot was attached, which didn't look great in terms of styling. In terms of the interiors, well, the rear doors were bigger. In fact, after the B-pillar, everything was new. The rear seat was also repositioned to address that one criticism of the Swift, which was the rear seat was cramped, so it had a little bit more rear seat space. It was also softer at the rear to give it better ride quality. 440-litre boot, and because it was 4.1 meters in length, it didn't get the excise duty benefits of a sub 4-meter car that was addressed in the second generation Dzire. The Dzire, it carried over the same engines from the Swift, and it was the diesel that did roaring business. Now, its two main rivals were the Logan and the Fiesta, and compared to both of them, the Dzire was quicker, 14.98 seconds to 100. Doesn't sound quick, under 15 seconds, but this was faster and also this was very efficient. But compared to the Swift, the Dzire, it gave up that one thing that we really loved about the Swift, and that was its sharp, enthusiastic handling. The Dzire, it had the same suspension setup as the Swift, but it was softer at the rear. There was a little bit more weight at the rear, and that meant with a full load, it would squat at the rear would move around too much. It was also too soft. So all the sharpness, the directness, the nimbleness of the Swift was lost with the Dzire. But with the rear seat angle changed and the rear seat position also changed, there was a little bit more space, and that is what customers wanted from something like the Dzire. In 2012 came the Gen 2 Dzire. Now that was squeezed in to fit in under the sub 4 meter rules to take advantage of that excise duty brakes. And even though it was shorter, the boot integration was done much better than this. Here, it looks like the boot was stuck on. Now, with every subsequent generation of the Dzire, it moved further and further away from the Swift front end to right now, the Dzire front end has more in common with Audis than with the Swift. Also, every generation of the Dzire, it became more powerful, more efficient, better interiors, better quality, and also better in terms of safety. The Dzire was not the first compact sedan, but it perfected the formula. Over the years, it had plenty of rivals. Fiesta, Logan, Ford Aspire, Manza, Indigo, what else? VW Amio. But today, the only rival it is left with is the Honda Amaze. Over the years, the Dzire has chewed up and spat out every single rival, and not for nothing is this segment routinely referred to as the Dzire segment. Oh, there's also the Hyundai Accent, which the Dzire outperforms. The story of the Logan begins not with Mahindra. It does not even begin in India. It goes back to 1971 when a university mathematician and professor, Gerard de Turbe, he joined Renault. Renault, in 1999, they bought Dacia, and Gerard de Turbe, he was put in charge of Project MO to design a car at half the price of any Renault up until then. Gerard, he delivered, and the result was the Dacia Logan, a car based off first principles: maximum space, maximum reliability, minimum cost. Mahindra had a long-standing partnership with Renault. The petrol engines in the Scorpio, those were actually Renault engines. And in 2005, the two parties signed a joint venture, 51-49 in Mahindra's favor. 700 crores went into that joint venture to build 50,000 Logans per year at Mahindra's Nasik factory. The Logan, it was built off the Renault-Nissan Alliance B platform, the same as the Micra, and Mahindra's own engineers, they developed the right-hand drive version for India and also for export to South Africa and SAARC countries. The front suspension was from the Clio 2. The rear suspension was a torsion beam, and it was all adapted for Indian conditions. The spring rates, those were changed to give it better body control while maintaining the ride comfort. The suspension travel was increased by 18 millimeters. This was not a hasty undertaking, but a genuine adaptation to suit emerging markets. The Logan got a 1.6 petrol engine, made 84 bhp, and we called it uninspiring. It also got a 1.4 petrol engine. That's what we have here. I don't think I even tested it way back then because Mahindra, Renault, they didn't want us to drive this car. This is super slow. But the star of the package was the 1.5 DCI. Now that diesel engine, that became one of India's most popular diesel engines. It went to the Duster, into the Nissans, into a whole load of cars. That delivered decent performance, but extraordinary fuel efficiency along with excellent refinement. At launch, the back seat of the Logan, it was converted into benches. Journalists sat on that, and the intent was to highlight the shoulder width of the Logan, which actually was very good. You could sit 3 abreast over here comfortably. Another big talking point was the fuel economy of the diesel engine. So back in my overdrive days, we did a mega mileage run where we ran the Logan non-stop at the VRD until the tank ran dry. It ran for 59 hours. We were driving it at 50 kmph, so that was a bit of a torture. And it did 2,248 kilometers for a fuel economy of 35 point something kmpl. So it was extraordinarily fuel efficient. We also did a real-world fuel economy run. Delhi to Ahmedabad, 981 kilometers, and it delivered 30 point something kmpl. But all that wasn't enough. The Logan, it was uninspiring to look at. The price, it was out of whack for a car that everybody knew was a low-cost car. And the reason for that was that the engines, they were imported from France. In 2010, Mahindra and Logan called it quits. In 2011, Mahindra relaunched the Logan, badged the Verito. Later on, they chopped the Verito's boot to create the sub-4 meter Verito vibe. After that, they also electrified the Verito to create the first electric cabs. None of it worked. In fact, the styling was the main reason for the Logan's downfall. The styling was the main reason for the Toyota Etios's downfall. The Etios, if you remember, looked kind of like a clone of the Logan. And that's why the Etios lasted for just one generation. Speaking of cars that are gone but not forgotten, in 2010, Ford, they were reinventing themselves and the Figo is what rescued them. Now, this was based on the 5th generation Fiesta platform that was phased out world over. We should have been angry, being given a hand-me-down platform that was no longer used in Europe. Except that platform gave the Figo great pricing and excellent dynamics. To be honest, I was never a fan of the styling of the Figo, but styling is personal. What you like, I might not, and vice versa. What there was no disputing about was that the Fiesta was a hoot to drive and everything else was sorted, including service costs. In the 2000s, Ford had gained this reputation of being expensive to service. They addressed all of that with the Figo. In fact, they claimed that it was cheaper to service a Figo than an equivalent Maruti Suzuki. The Figo, with the diesel, it was also the cheapest in its segment. It was only the Beat diesel and the Celerio diesel that was slightly more expensive, and those were short-lived products. The Figo diesel, excellent value for money. The launch drives were held in Goa, and I remember marveling at just how communicated the chassis was. It would goad you into pushing harder and faster. Everything was so responsive. This would run rings around its rivals like the WagonR, and it was the overwhelming winner of the 2011 Car of the Year. 3 years later, the Figo was facelifted with the Aston Martin-inspired 1.4 nose that looks good even today. The 1.4 noisy diesel was replaced with the Duratorq 1.5, which actually was a nice smooth motor that complemented the chassis. In fact, on the chassis front, Ford went one step further with the Figo S. That got revised suspension settings, and that made it the best handling hatchback in the country. So if the Figo was the best handling hatch, why didn't we take that rallying? Well, for one, the Figo S came in 2017. The Polo, we started rallying it in 2013, and over the next couple of seasons sorted out all the quality issues. Somebody would have to go through the whole rigmarole of doing all of that with the Figo. Nobody wanted to do that, especially since the Figo S continued with the same 1.2 petrol engine, 87 bhp. It just wasn't as quick as the Polo. Now, there were a lot of go-faster parts available. This was based on the old Fiesta platform. It was raced and rallied in Europe, so a lot of parts available. But in India, there was no factory motorsport support from Ford. And it is a good thing that we stayed away, because 4 years later, Ford packed up their Indian operations and left. Small matter that a year after that, Volkswagen Motorsport were disbanded. But that doesn't change the fact that the single car that I miss the most from the 2000s remains the Polo. What car do you miss from the 2000s? Let us know in the comments, and thank you for watching.